Last year, I put 160 acres under contract in an underestimated location that I believe will be the next up-and-coming market in the next 3 to 5 years. Before a thorough vetting, there were two major advantages that grabbed my attention: America's newest national park and 2 million annual visitors. Now, I spent about 10 days here last year staying in Airbnbs and other popular places, i.e. competitors, which were underwhelming at best and expensive. This average cabin here cost me $275 per night during the shoulder season. We weren't even peak season yet, and it was almost booked out completely for peak season. In today's video, I'll show you how we found, underwrote, and obtained full permits to build out a glamping resort for just $1,000 in one day. And if we pull this off correctly, this resort could be worth north of $3 million, but only costing less than a third that to build out. I'll show you our calculations and process on how we got there. Now, this place is a sleepy little town even up until late last year, with most of the vacation rentals making under $35,000 a year. I'd like you to welcome to the future site of Starry Farms in Fayetteville, West Virginia. Located just a few miles from the main strip in town and another couple minutes to the main entrance to the New River Gorge National Park. Now, this property is what I call a shotgun-shaped piece of land. Not because it looks like one, well, in this case it kind of does, but because it's an old reference to the long and skinny homes where if you fire a shotgun, it hit everything inside. Now, this property was purchased as 9 acres, but I'll tell you later how we got a whole free acre just by doing a little bit of due diligence. And even though 10 acres does sound like a lot of land, but because of draining issues and potential flooding on the property, there's a very specific buildable area that we have to adhere to, which is right here. And to optimize that area and make the best use of utilities, access ways, and take advantage of construction scalability, this is what we're gunning to create. A landscape hotel with 6 separate unique doors that can host events and generate well over $500,000 a year in revenues and be valued north of $3 million. But this area is slowly starting to wake up, especially with the support of the local and state governments. The new national park doesn't hurt either. Now, in just 1 year, we're already seeing gross revenue numbers doubling and even tripling. Now, when you think of a resort, you're probably thinking of places like this for the ultra-rich. Well, us everyday folks want a similar experience, but we just can't afford that $10,000 to $20,000 nightly rate. So, what we do is we build and create places that are a bit more modest, but still get our guests saying stuff like this. Now, you might be wondering, why would you invest in 160 acres in a remote coal mining state like West Virginia? Well, a couple of reasons. Really good reasons. One is I can navigate around landlord-tenant laws, squatter rights, and endless ordinances and restrictions much more easily. Forget the West Coast cities. Here's looking at you, Portland. And honestly, the potential returns here are 10 to 20 times what you'd make with the traditional single or multi-family homes, which I obviously like. Now, growing up, investing in real estate always meant buying homes in the city. It's tried and true, but it's boring. The returns are often just about breaking even and hoping for appreciation over time. And hope is not a good investment. But the question around real estate, no matter what the strategy is where?
It's all about location, location, location.
It's a bit nebulous what that means today. Does it mean schools and freeways, grocery stores, or maybe a new affluent neighborhood? I've learned that it comes down to something that I call demographic travel density. When I finally understood what this really meant and what this is, I got deeper into alternative real estate and vacation rentals. And instead of netting $300-400 a month, I began netting $5,000-10,000 per month from the same property. Now, this is just a simple ratio of the number of visitors traveling to an area measured in square miles. So for example, Texas Hill Country gets approximately 34 million visitors annually, spread across 31,000 square miles, or a ratio of 1,097 visitors per square mile. Not bad. But in this particular area of West Virginia, we have approximately 2 million visitors annually, which is far less than the 34 million, but it's spread across only 20 square miles for a ratio of 100,000 visitors per square mile. This funneling effect means a large mass of people in a small area, all looking for accommodations. Now, we have a plethora of different options and strategies when it comes to alternative real estate. These opportunities aren't often talked about, let alone taught in schools. So We're going to talk about it today. Now, this is the plot of land that we're discussing in today's video. It's within spitting distance of the new national park. I'm talking about minutes from the main entrance, and it's really close to the main town. Again, minutes, like 2-3 minutes. And this is Doug, a proud member of our Land Hacker program and the owner of this land.
How's it going, Doug?
Hey man, good. How you doing?
Good, man. So what ultimately sold you on this market?
Honestly, it was a conversation between you and I probably when I first joined the program. I think you recommended that to me, and I just grabbed onto it, did my research, and made a decision to go with the Fayetteville, West Virginia area.
What really stood out to you from that conversation?
I was in a unique position where I was kind of ready to go do construction, and I was trying to leverage your expertise into terms, where are you personally looking to build from? And took your recommendation, and after I looked at it, I was like, holy cow, this area is growing. The number of visitors going through that area is increasing, year over year, and just upgrading the entire place to national park status really drew my attention. Also, the lack of competition, to be quite frank. I think all three of those things were a recipe for hopefully to be success.
So Doug recently acquired the property and is in the process of building it out. If you're thinking of doing something similar, his story is fascinating and pretty inspirational. Now, after a lot of careful planning and strategizing, Doug decided on a strategy of creating 6 different sites on the 9-acre plot of land, with each netting approximately $40,000 a year, which equates to about $240,000 per year after loan servicing and before taxes. Not too bad, definitely enough to replace his day job. But what's even better is that the cash flow stream carries a value. Much like how your home has inherent value, so does this business. And the value of the business is traded at something called the cap rate. And that value is somewhere between $2.1 million and $3 million. And that's what I love about business when it comes to real estate. It's not about the color of the walls or the cabinet grain type. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is the net operating income. The first unit is always the most expensive in terms of time, money, and lessons learned. That's why the first one should be relatively quick and inexpensive so you can get the hard lessons out of the way. The nice thing about the POC, proof of concept, when done correctly, is that you can carry over a lot of the initial sunk investments into future phases too, like utility work, permitting, design, and engineering. So for the first one, Doug opted to go with a 30-foot dome configuration. When he was underwriting the market, he noticed that there were a lot of smaller families and groups of friends that were coming to the area and wanted to offer more sleeping space than the traditional 1-bedroom studio. This way, he can sleep up to 6 people inside of an 800 square foot space, which is actually very generous. With careful consideration of his end users in mind, Doug went through several design iterations to optimize the space, sleeping area, and efficiency of construction. He ultimately chose a design style that's both easy to build and it resonates with his guests. Now, when it comes to unique structures, it is crucial to consider the building science of the space so your investment is protected from the elements, heat and cold, rodents and insects, and of course mold and accidents. But before we get deeper into the numbers and how we got there, let's start with how Doug found and got the place fully permitted in just one day and what he would have done differently.
The permitting process is super simple. It literally takes one day in the local courthouse, as long as you have all your documentation together, which is about 3 or 4 pages. It's very simple. The fee is a 1% of your construction costs. You pay the fee and you should have some construction plans, and they give you a permit same day.
And you knew this obviously before purchasing or putting the property under contract?
I've been in communication with the zoning and building department probably for about 3 months before I went down that direction of pulling permits and stuff like that. And I was pleasantly surprised how easy it was. 'Cause I've had experience pulling permits in other counties, and this was a cakewalk compared to everything else I've been through.
Now, Doug did an exercise that we teach called building comparable buckets. This is where we use data aggregators, booking platforms like Airbnb, Vrbo, and Booking.com, and even visiting competitors and booking out their spaces and interviewing their staff. When we do all of this, we're able to build out financial models that look something like this here. Now, we're really interested in only 3 key metrics: break even, payback period, and margins. From those 3 things, we can give a property a grade. And after careful analysis, we got what we call a quality score of 12. Anything above an 8 is a green light. Above a 10 is basically you're starting to eke into home run territory. And so this opportunity is looking really, really good. Now, this sheet right here that we've ran through a couple of different scenarios, is called a unit economic breakdown. And what it basically does is it breaks down the cost and profitability down to the unit level. Very critical to any business of any size, including in real estate. Here's how serious Elon is about it when talking to his former CEO.
So when I then called Martin and said, what's the cost of the car, Martin? Oh, I don't know. Are you sure? and that when he did bold-faced lied to me, I was like, that's it. You know, he can't be CEO anymore. So we had a board meeting and we fired him.
Now, if you've been thinking about investing in alternative real estate, land, or have been wanting to get into the vacation home investing business, set up a free call with me or my team, and let's see if we can help you. Take a look at my calendar in the description just down below. But how do we decide which structures to build? There are literally hundreds of different structures you could build. It comes down to 4 key things outside the typical budget, time, and customers. First is climate, and then it's access to materials, build complexity, and then equity gain strategy. Now, due to this particular location climate, it automatically reduced the options to just a handful. Ultimately, Doug made an executive decision on what he felt most comfortable with while catering to his future guests. He opted for his first structure to be a dome due to the quick turnaround, relative ease of build, and something different in that area. So what exactly are we looking for in an area? When we're looking at an area, a lot of factors come into play, like this long list that we work with all of our students on. But the 3 that always stands above the rest are cost to enter, foot traffic, and competition. I call this the sniff test when we're looking at a new market or location, and within minutes, we can usually tell if a market is worth diving in deeper and spending more time looking through the other factors or not. But if a market is lacking or is weak in one of these 3 core areas, it's an uphill battle to make the deal work, and quite often not worth it for most of us.
Can you give us a cost breakdown on everything so far?
I think like all in, like with the purchase of everything and constructing the first door, about 350, I think, all in for the first door.
Okay, including land.
Including land, yeah. The land itself, it's 10 acres. It's I purchased it for $250,000. Next is like what I kind of call like shared costs, because I plan to build multiple structures, so there's going to be some shared costs across those structures. You know, an access road, utilities, things like that. So if I break those numbers down, the biggest one was actually trying to deal with the water. I'm on a very large flat piece of land, which is kind of unheard of for the area. It's very mountainous, a lot of hills and inclines and stuff. So all the water comes into my property. And I had to spend about $15,000 to install storm drainage, French drains, and things like that to deal with the water. And that would then like unlock the next level to allow me to build septic and stuff like that. Yeah, so like I said, $15,000 to deal with the water, about $2,000 to do the access road, you know, lay gravel, grade it, things like that.
Okay. Talk to me just a little bit about what do you envision here? So I know it's just not 10 acres with this dome in the middle of it. Can you talk and walk us through a little bit more about like what you plan and what you want to see happen here?
We want to create like a series of unique structures. So it's not just, you know, 6, 7, 8 domes, you know, on a piece of land. We'll start with the dome, and then the next structure may be an A-frame. We may do a container. We may do, you know, whatever comes to our mind. And that way people want to kind of come back and, you know, visit the area again, but get like a new, you know, unique experience in a different structure, basically. So we hope to get like a lot of reoccurring visitors to come back.
Now, Doug's goals are probably similar to yours. He was living in Florida, raising a family, working a good job in software programming, but he knew he didn't want to spend the rest of his life chained to a desk. He wanted to build an investment portfolio to replace his income and provide a massive windfall if he ever decides to exit, which I know probably resonates with you a little bit. Now, once he had the property, he got started right away with a survey, which amusingly, which I've never seen this happen before, found him an extra acre of land that was not documented during the sale. So kudos to him for working out another acre. For his first phase, he is doing a POC, a proof of concept of a high-end dome. But before any of that, we have to make sure that we've underwritten the asset correctly. Now, underwriting is an in-depth process that involves zoning, permits, comparables, buckets, growth trends, unit economics, and more. Now, our goal here is not just to figure out how much that we can make from the project, but almost more importantly, how much is the project worth? And we have a free downloadable spreadsheet in our community to help you with this. Again, everything just down in the description. Go check it out. Now, while I was there, I visited the county office, spoke to the power company, local well and septic experts, and got the rundown on costs and permitting fees. Commercial zoning was by far the easiest for permits and inspections. I also always advise checking with neighboring landowners. Initially, it seemed like Doug might have some issues with 2 neighbors, but after explaining his plans, meeting them in person, they were actually totally on board and excited that he was doing something with this dead, raw piece of land that's been sitting there for decades. And after assessing the market, running the numbers, we estimate that each door in Doug's location can produce somewhere around $5,000 per month, or approximately $67,000 annually, with approximately 30% in expenses, netting Doug about $40,000 annually per door. Now, after running our construction budget and considering build costs, permits, road, power, surveying, etc., each additional site should cost right around $100,000, with land costing $250,000, initial sunk investments of $75,000, and the 6 total doors of $600,000. We're looking at a total project cost basis of approximately $925,000. Now, this will generate approximately $240,000 in pre-tax profits. This number here multiplied by 6, or approximately 26% ROI. Not too bad, but Doug's cash on cash return is going to be closer to 50%, as future phases will most likely be financed. Still, not too bad. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Once built out with the 6 doors, we estimate $208,000 in NOI, net operating income. This factors in all costs of operating the business, but does not include financing. Now, assuming a range between a 7 to a 10 cap, typical for campgrounds and RV parks, Doug's looking at a valuation of approximately $3 million. And even at a 10% cap rate, it's still valued at $2.1 million. That's a 2 to 3x return on his initial project cost basis in about 3 years. We like those types of numbers. Now, Doug financed the land in first phase with cash from savings and proceeds from other investments. Future phases will be funded through a bridge, construction, or business loan. Now, for most of us, I'd recommend a land loan for the property and a construction loan for the first door. Land loans can be hard to find, but usually require 40% down. Still, a more optimal solution if you're not starting off with a ton of cash. Now, Doug has always dreamed of tackling a project like this and has turned it into a passion project, getting involved in the work and even getting his hands dirty. No matter what your goals or financial objectives are, I always emphasize to build a lifestyle that you'd want to live, whether that be apartments, living off grid, or building a landscape hotel with domes next to a national park. The nice thing is that it's up to you. Now, Doug's already built out his work shed where he's currently working out of and stays at when he's on site, brought in the road, put in the septic system, filed for permits, and ready for power and well. And he's currently working with a structural engineer to get the foundation poured. He still has a few more months of hard work ahead of him, but he's already increased the value of the land just by getting permits and prepping the property. Subscribe to catch the next video when Doug is ready to give us a full tour. And if you want that free spreadsheet and start getting plugged in with me and my team, join our free community where there are hundreds of like minds and several monthly Q&As with me and my team. Now go watch this video here on another member of ours who land hacked 12 nasty acres into 3 profitable rentals in just 1 year. See you next time.